is Molly with Garden Wise Adventures again, and I thought today I would take you on a little bit of a tour of the garden. I took you on a tour earlier this season and haven't updated it yet, and thought I would update you because it is absolutely gorgeous this evening. So let's head out and see what's happening in the garden tonight. First thing I wanted to show you is my garlic harvest. I harvested it a few days ago and it is looking great. I've got some pretty large heads here. Let's see if I can get this so you can see. That is a huge one. They're almost ready for me to store. I do not braid my garlic. It makes a huge mess. What I do is I let it get dry to the point where the stems will break off. I cut off the stems, cut off the roots, clean off the dirt, and then I actually store them in a hanging plastic bag. I have not had any issues doing it that way. None of them have rotted, and they last through, I just finished up using last year's. Do not utilize, in cooking, my largest heads. I will use those heads to replant for next year. That way I can continue getting the good genetics of larger and larger heads. Wanted to also show you my jujube and serviceberries. Serviceberries harvest is almost done. The birds have gotten most of them and they're starting to kind of rot on the shrub. But I really wanted to show you and see if we can get a good picture of it. The flowers and the fruit that are forming on my jujubes. This branch right here, you can see, is starting to get fruit. I'm really excited about this. This is one of my favorite fruits. It ripens mid-October, so it's really late in the season. They're great candied and great for fresh eating. It also smells divine. My forest pansy redbud is also doing really well. I think they are an absolutely gorgeous tree. I love the heart-shaped leaves. Let's see if we can get a good picture of a heart-shaped leaf. Look at that. Look at the color. The color is staying really well this year because it's been a little bit cooler. The flowers in the spring were gorgeous also. Over to my large hillside. My little tiny pluot. It's actually getting quite a bit of fruit this year. I'm really excited for that. It's really good fruit. I've gotten fruit from it in the past years. This year we're just getting a little bit more. Pluots. Actually, this is a dapple dandy pluot. Pluots are a combination between apricots and plums. Pluots are 75% plum, 25% apricot. Apriums are 75% apricot and 25% plum. I haven't liked the apriums as much as I've liked the pluots. So my favorite varieties of pluots are the Flavor King and Dapple Dandy, and this one is Dapple Dandy. Okay, we're on to the other side. We are going to also prune the Sensation Lilac and Mock Orange on this side. Here's one of the last blooms on the Mock Orange. I don't know how well you can see that. Absolutely gorgeous shrub when it's flowering. When it's not flowering, it is not as pretty. Here we've got my pear. Next spring I'll give you a little bit of a demonstration on pruning in the Dave Wilson backyard orcharding method. That is, Dave Wilson came up with the method of putting more than one type of fruit tree in a hole. That way you can extend your harvest. Right here I've got a Bartlett pear, a Fuji apple, and a Jonah Gold apple. And they're doing quite well. The pear usually does the best. We've got quite a bit of pears and they are so good. I'm excited for the harvest on these. The apples are seeming to bear alternately. There's not a ton of apples in here. We do have a few. Let's see right in there. There's a few. This is my Fuji apple. Now we're going to go through my herb hill. I love landscaping with herbs. This right here is a purple sage. Sages, I think, are great landscape plants. This one is probably about 12 years old. I don't have to prune it very often. During the really cold winters, I've had some dieback, but it has always come back from the roots. In the milder winters, it just kind of stays looking like that. We've got a couple of patches of oregano that are just about ready to bloom. We've got the lamb's ears in between, and a catmint that really needs to be pruned. I'm not sure if I'm going to prune that until later this fall when it starts dying back, but we'll see. We'll see the kind of time and energy I have. It has been completely covered in pollinators this year, though. I have another favorite sage. There is my Bergarten sage. Bergarten sage just has a bigger leaf to it. So it's a more substantial leaf. It is your regular culinary sage, and it's finished blooming. It usually has just a few really pretty blue blooms, but those are done right now. We've got some yarrow and winter savory. I absolutely love winter savory in soups. It's got a nice pungent flavor. The pollinators love it, and it's very easy to take care of. I just prune it back in the fall, and that's it. I wanted to show you my glorious hydrangeas. Look how well they're doing. We've got them in various stages. This is the Endless Summer Hydrangea. They do not do as well in Utah as a lot of the other varieties. But this one right here seems to thrive. It only gets about this big. This one is 6 years old, I think. And it blooms all throughout the summer. That's why they call it Endless Summer. Just kind of show you. So this is one of the first blooms that we've had. And it's really beautiful. We've got another one. We've got a new bud. For some reason, this side is turning a little more white. Bud's just opening. And as they get older, they'll first turn green. The flowers will start to turn green, and then they'll turn a burgundy color. So by fall, we'll actually have the pink, green, and burgundy colors all mixed, and I'll probably do an update video on that. We also have a hosta mixed in with my spearmint. The way I keep spearmint in control is I'll just go around the outside edges with a shovel and just take out the outside edges. It's mixed in with the lamium. Back here I need to troubleshoot. It does not get near the amount of irrigation it needs to keep my bleeding heart alive. So I'm going to have to figure out something that can take drought and put it back there. I forget-me-nots that need to be cut back. They're finished flowering, along with another hydrangea. Now if you look at this hydrangea, we've got several issues going on with it. I no longer have dogs. I lost my poor last puppy just a few weeks ago. But they used to dig under this bush and dug it out quite a bit. Plus the spring that we had this year, we've got some nutrient deficiencies. This right here looks like iron deficiency to me. I put down some more iron on it a little while ago. We had a really cool wet spring, and that's probably added to the problem. Also looks like there might be a little bit of nitrogen and possibly some other micronutrients that are deficient in it. But it's still blooming like crazy. I think they're absolutely gorgeous bushes. To talk to you a little bit about how I take care of this property as a single mom and with several jobs. Anyway, what I love to do is I love to head out right after I get home from work. Sorry, the sun's in my eyes. What I really like to do is spend about 15 minutes, and it's going to sound weird, but I love to go visit my plants. So as I'm walking around the yard, I will do the weeding. I advocate using Roundup, 2,4-D, any of the chemicals you need to help control weeds as much as you need. I use them on my clients' properties when I had my landscape maintenance company. But on my property, the 15 minutes or so a day that I spend walking around the property and looking at things, that seems to be sufficient to keep the weeds under control. As I look at plants, I have a lot of plants that have a lot of good smells, good textures. It's fun to go around and look at them. And as I'm looking at them, I'll just stop and pull the occasional weed. I also mulch really heavily. That helps keep weeds down. And I never let any of the weeds go to seed. Nothing ever gets to go to seed. If it goes to seed, then I'm done for. The only thing I let go to seed are some of the herbs in my garden and the lettuces, and let me show you those. Here is my vegetable garden in July. It is wild and happy. We've started out with the strawberries. We had a great harvest this year. These are ever-bearing strawberries, so they should be, I think you can see here that we're starting to get some more flowers. So we should get another harvest. Grapes had a very late start this year. Usually by this time of year, I am almost done harvesting my hemorrhoid grapes, but they're not even anywhere near being ready. I talked a little bit before about letting some of my herbs and lettuces go to seed, and you can see the one that takes off the most. This is dill. I have not planted dill for years. I just let it go to seed. It pops up wherever it wants, and then I thin out what I don't need. And I use those for making pickles. I use the young leaves in salads in the spring, which is one of my favorite things to put in salads. You can also see in here we have got some calendulas. I let the calendulas reseed. They bring in pollinators. Another one that brings in pollinators is the coreopsis. I think those are absolutely gorgeous. I do not let those go to seed as much. I'm going to need to get in here and cut these back a little bit because they take over completely and it's really hard to weed them out. I also choose certain lettuces, let them go to seed, and then I never have to plant lettuce. I have several different varieties that will go to seed, and they seem to come back true to form. So I have garden salads early spring without really having to do much of anything. We have the onions in here. I may have planted those a little bit too late. I use sets, and as you can see, they are not heading up very much. They are day length sensitive. So if you don't plant them at the right time, a lot of times you won't get the big bulbs, and I need to do better about that. The other thing that plants that are having issues is I should have a ton of tomatoes this time of year with large plants. My cherry tomatoes, sun sugar is my favorite, they just have not done very well. It was a really, really cool spring, and I think that stunted their growth. But I am starting to get cherry tomatoes, and it makes me very happy. Another plant that I let reseed readily is the Mexican feathergrass, just because I love it. I love the texture that it gives in the garden. I love how it looks in the evening and when the winds blow. It's just one of my favorite grasses. The other plant that has done really well that makes me happy this year that I let reseed is my cilantro. Now, a lot of people are probably looking at it thinking, oh my word, your cilantro is all gone to seed, it's useless now. Well, I don't like cilantro. I'm one of those who probably have the genetic whatever so that I don't like the leaves. I use it for the seeds. The seeds are called coriander. These are just barely starting to get ripe. And I grind these up with peppercorns, dried onions, and dried garlic, and seasoned salt, and it makes an excellent meat rub. This is just about ready for me to pull out and let it dry. And then it's very time consuming, but I just remove all these little seed heads and store those until I'm ready to grind them up. We've got my thyme that has reseeded with a few more onions. And this was where the garlic was. This is my rosemary. It is absolutely huge and is looking really gorgeous this time of year. This plant is also 10 to 12 years old. I really don't remember when I planted it. It's an ARP. It did die back by 3/4 one year, but you can see that it is absolutely brilliantly happy this year. I am starting to get, let's see if we can find any in here. I found one cucumber in here that was just starting to get a little bit of size. This is the Marketmore cucumber. I really like them for fresh eating and also for pickles. They're not really made for pickles, but they make excellent pickles if you pick them young. Yeah, I am not seeing the one that I found the other day, but they are starting to get ripe. We have my basil. It's starting to get to be a good size. Got to pull off some of those flower buds. What I generally do with basil is I keep pulling off the flower buds until it gets to a good size, pull the whole thing out, dry it on my dryer, and just store it. Use it as dried basil. All my grapes that need to be cut back. And then here are my non-staked tomatoes. This is another area where I should stake the tomatoes. They would do so much better, but I never end up having the time or the energy to do it when it needs to be done. But as you can see, I'm starting to get a crop. They're nowhere near ripe yet. It's mid-July, so these are also quite far behind. Here are my peach trees, and I have a nectarine in here, also planted in the Dave Wilson Nursery backyard orcharding style. We've got a early lemon Alberta, which is right here, excellent for fresh eating. One I still need to continue thinning because I couldn't reach the top branches and then forgot about it is the O. Henry, which makes giant peaches that are so good. This is the best tasting peach I've ever had. And I don't remember the variety of nectarine that I have, but the nectarine is back here with the glorious bee balm that came up in different colors. This is another area where I just let everything reseed. It's under my fruit trees. So I've got garlic that helps protect from borer. I still have gotten 1 or 2 borers with the garlic around it, but it seems to have done a great job. It's not scientifically proven to reduce borers, and I probably really should be spraying because if I am actually getting the borers, I am part of the problem of the neighborhood because I'm allowing them to continue. But I haven't gotten enough borers to really do much damage to the trees. The damage that you see here on the nectarine was from a long time ago. That was before I put the garlic around the trees. The things that I let grow through here are the lovage, the bee balm. We've got some borage. Borage is back here. It's getting too much shade, so it's not as great as it could be, but you can see the beautiful blue flowers starting to come. I've got a ton of columbines. Some more cilantro, a little oregano shrub that started. This is lemon balm. It smells really good. I try not to let that flower and set as much seed because it would take over. My cherry tree was absolutely loaded this year. I had a bunch of people come and help harvest, and they were really good. Mine ended up in the freezer, pits and all, and I just eat them like candy whenever I'm in the mood. We've got my little plum tree that just does not get enough sun back here, but it still is giving me fruit. I'll get a good deal of fruit, but the birds tend to end up with these. And down here we have my fig tree. I talked to you about it in the spring video that I did. And this is as big as it has ever gotten. This is also 6 years old. It doesn't like this area at all, but I let it grow because it's a fig tree. It's never produced any fruit, never gets any bigger than that, dies down to a stick in the fall, and then it's done. And there's my forested hill. And it just is very self-containing. I do very little work on this hill. In early spring, I'll go through and cut back, any stray shrubs that have planted themselves in the juniper. I hate aspen trees. I don't know if you can see my house over here. My house is way over there. It's got, it's down quite a bit in elevation from these aspen trees. Plus, the person who built this house and put in the landscape originally completely covered this hillside in this weed mat. I did not remove it because, as you can see, trying to remove weed mat from this kind of hill is going to be ridiculous. It also, I think, has helped with erosion. But I am anti-weed mat and anti-aspens. But the aspen trees will throw up shoots all the way down under my deck. And they're ridiculous. But they are gorgeous here. And it's going to be impossible to remove them. I may need to one of these days because the aspen trees are very prone to diseases this low in elevation. There's diseases and borer, a lot of different things that will kill aspen trees. When you take them out of their habitat, which is, they like to be 7,000 feet and above in a lot moister areas. We are in my front yard now, and one thing I wanted to talk to you about is succession in color. Let me get out of the sun here. When I planned my garden, I knew that I was going to be a single mom working every day, and I wanted some place that would give me a lot of joy all the way through the season. So one thing I did was plan on a succession of color. First things in the spring are the bulbs, then comes the lilacs, then comes the iris. Sometimes the iris and the lilacs come together, just depends on the spring. Then it goes into the lavender and the lilies. Then we move on to the echinacea and the black-eyed Susans. In the fall, we've got my really large dinner plate hibiscus. Let's look at what it looks like right now. So we're starting out with my lilac. I utilize a lot of iris. I love irises. Right now we've got our snow cap. I think it's the snow cap daisies that are blooming right now. I love the deep purples and the mauves. So we've got a little devil nine bark, and I love to just let these do their own thing. Trying to prune them is just, it doesn't make them look beautiful. I'll go in and thin it out every once in a while and take away errant branches, and they're just absolutely gorgeous shrubs if you let them do their thing. I love to add edibles in the garden. This right here is my medlar. We'll go over what medlars are in another video. As you can see, the fruit is starting to form. The flowers are absolutely gorgeous. Here's my large bed. The lavender is starting to fade, and I'll be cutting that back in a couple of weeks, along with the lilies. Now my lilies come in a couple of different phases. We've got these stargazer lilies that come first, and then we have another lily in the back that I'll show you that just hasn't quite started blooming yet. But I just love the different textures and the colors. One of my favorite lilies, this is also another one that adds scent to the yard. I don't know exactly what kind of lily this is, but from here the scent is almost overpowering. I love this lily. I love blue also. I try to keep blue running through the yard. I kind of feel like it's a river of blue. I've got my blue spruce in the back, going on to my blue spruce in the front, and then on the other side I have a weeping blue spruce that we'll go show you in a little bit. Another thing I wanted to show you is the difference in my lavenders. I have two different kinds of lavender. We have Munstead lavender over there. As you can see, it is actually a darker blue. It's starting to fade now, but it is a darker blue. It's got a smaller growth habit, even though it is quite large. That's a good 3-4 feet across. And then we have the Provence lavender. The Munstead lavender seems to be really hardy. This area of my yard is open to the winter winds. It gets quite cold, snow gets thrown up, salt gets thrown up from the streets. And I've tried planting Provence lavender in that area so I could have it so it all looks the same on this side of the yard. But the Provence that survives right here beautifully will not survive where that Munstead lavender is. It's died probably 4 times. But it seems to thrive right here. It's got a much better scent. It's taller. It's a much bigger plant. But this is the lavender that they use in the French fields. Absolutely gorgeous scent. The Munstead lavender also has a great scent, but I don't like it as much as I like the Provence lavender. And this is, like I said, is just about ready to be cut back. Got the daylilies, and this is my later blooming lily. So the lilies do tend to have a longer bloom because we have some that bloom at different times. I like the shorter butterfly bushes, and they are starting to bloom, and they bring in a ton of pollinators, and they have a gorgeous scent. We've got a bright red hardy hibiscus that's going to be blooming here in a little bit. We've got some more Munstead lavender, and my iris, my weeping blue spruce. We've got the autumn jubilee 9-bark that I love so much, and then my very favorite plant, and we'll update you when it actually blooms, my chase tree, Vitex Agnes castus. So thank you very much. Go and have a great garden adventure. We'll see you next time.